Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast with Mike Tagliere, and I'm Bobby Sylvester. We're on Twitter at Mike Tagliere NFL and at Bobby Fantasy Pro. And today we've got a DFS show for you today with our guest. But first, Tags, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm wide awake today. I don't know how else to put it, man. I've been listening to some like old school metal today, and as I was listening to it, I was thinking this music would probably terrify Bobby.
It definitely would. I'm much more of a country music type of guy, so not my kind of thing. Our guest today is Doug Norrie of DFSR.com. He can be found on Twitter at his name, Doug Norrie. That's Norrie. Doug, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. Didn't expect to get like a metal reference here this early into the podcast, but no, it's all going good. Excited to talk about Week 13.
So you have to break the tie. Are we going country music or metal for you?
Oh man, what an impossible. I mean, you're not allowed to vote neither in these things for me, I guess. But I'm trending toward neither, but I definitely have to go country over metal.
Yeah, baby. Do you know how much hate I'm gonna get for saying I like country music?
Not as much hate as you got for the collusion thing.
Yeah, I changed my mind on that. Everyone else was right. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone. All right. Yeah, it definitely was collusion. It makes that you guys made a lot of sense. I do have a question for you before we get into the DFS stuff, and all three of us really like to talk, so we need to get right in. But we were talking about The Office before the show and how great it is. Doug's on like his 12th time through. We all love The Office. If you haven't watched The Office, like just go see it on Netflix. You're missing out. It's amazing. So who is your favorite character? We'll let you go first, Tags.
I'm going to start by saying Jim and Pam because like they have to be, otherwise my wife would kill me. My wife and I are kind of known as Jim and Pam because that's actually how we met through work and, stuff like that. So, but my favorite character has got to be Michael Scott. I mean, as much as I love that show and the writing in it and everything about it, the way they filmed it, everything, Michael like made that show. Like everything he did, like Steve Carell was just so friggin' good. Like nobody could replace him, and they tried on multiple occasions, and they struggled, but I still enjoyed the show afterwards. I know a lot of people stopped watching, but Michael Scott has got to be the answer here.
I think he changed TV forever, man. It was just so good. I would have guessed your favorite would have been Meredith.
Oh my God. I am so glad that they have like the blurred thing over her when all the stuff takes place that she does, because it's been terrible. But I did want to mention before we go over to Doug's favorite, I do want to mention that when we were thinking about this, I was like, okay, Andrew is one of our content managers at Fantasy Pros, and I think he's the Stanley of our company.
Oh, yes, man. That is so good.
He's so like, you just never know what he's thinking. And then until he's like mad about something. And then he's just like, hey, why'd you do this? And it's like so Stanley. It's like a monotone thing. It's hard to read him. It's awesome.
Who is Clinton? Because Clinton's going to listen to. Is he Angela? I'm just messing, Clinton. Okay, no one wants to hear this stuff. Doug, who's your favorite?
I was gonna say I could do like an hour and a half on The Office if we just want to do that instead. Scott obviously is Michael Scott's obviously the cornerstone. But I'll go a little deeper. I'll go Kevin Malone. Just for the one-offs that you get from him. Like he starts off the first season or second season, he's like this insane poker player. He's kind of smart, and they've slowly devolved into a guy who eventually they convinced everyone, or they convinced Holly that he was like part of like a special ed exchange program essentially.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
And he gets better as it goes on too. Like the more he becomes like the Cookie Monster, the better he is. When Michael Scott was gone, I feel like Kevin really saved the show because he stepped up his game. He's kind of like Cam from Modern Family, just really good at a lot of random stuff. And I like the the surprise factor. That's funny to me. But since you picked Kevin, I'll go with Erin. I thought Erin was a great one too.
Erin was awesome. I enjoyed Erin. I enjoyed her presence on the show. Her and Andy Bernard were a good one. I mean, everybody on that show did a phenomenal job. Like, I hate to leave anybody out. Creed is the weird guy. I don't.
There's a couple that are just like don't really understand, but some people like him, so whatever. Sure. Guys, we're going to get into the DFS, and we're going to be talking FanDuel and DraftKings. We're going to go cash games and then GPP. But first, I want to remind you all, we've got a signed Dalvin Cook Vikings helmet that we're giving away. This bad boy is beautiful. Tags has one just like it. Who's it from? Adrian Peterson?
Yeah, mine's Adrian Peterson. I ponied up for that one. That was a little more expensive because AP on a Vikings helmet was I think that might be my most expensive helmet I have.
Cook is going to be awesome next year. After he goes and gets like 10, 12 carries the rest of this season, I think he's going to go in the early third round. I'm going to get him in every league. So we're giving away this helmet. It's going to be a lot more valuable this time next year for sure. And that's at fantasypros.com/contest. And it comes to us from Pristine Auction. If you haven't seen Pristine Auction, check out what they have for you. There is something for absolutely everyone. There's a lot of stuff that is very affordable. If you're looking every day, you're going to find some great deal. Like yesterday, I saw a Nick Chubb signed Georgia Bulldogs jersey, $104. I signed Brian Dawkins Eagles jersey, just $83. You can check it out at pristineauction.com. Everything is guaranteed authentic from the most trusted sources, and you don't have to pay any more than you bid. If you bid $83 for Brian Dawkins' jersey, that's exactly what you pay.
Do they have a LeGarrette Blount jersey?
Probably not. I don't know. I mean, they have so many things, but I don't imagine they have a LeGarrette Blount.
You could probably find something on LeGarrette Blount there. Seriously, you could find a lot of players there.
Yeah, it's pristineauction.com, Pristine. And when you buy something from them, make sure to let them know Fantasy Pro sent you. That way we can keep doing these contests. All right, guys, so we'll start at the quarterback position here. Doug, we'll let you go first. Is there one cash game play that really stands out to you, or is it just a group of guys?
I have a group of 3 guys. I'll pick one of them now. I'm sure we'll touch on the other guys. I'm going to go, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to go Jameis. And the reason I don't like saying it is because when you have a team that has been fine just benching quarterbacks halfway through the games multiple times, it really ends up becoming sort of a thing. And
they can't do it again, though, can they?
Well, that's what I thought I didn't. I thought that the last time, because I've actually 2 times in cash. I've got the wrong end of that. Both weeks it happened in cash, and so I feel like the fact that it happened to me both times with Fitz the one week and Jameis the other. Well, I reversed those 2, but in the order it happened. I feel like actually in that way, I feel like my voice even rings out stronger that I'm willing to go back to it. Either that or I'm totally insane. So I think Jameis playing from behind here, he's just an excellent fantasy quarterback. I think I read a stat the other day that Tampa Bay's combined quarterback play would be behind only Mahomes in terms of overall fantasy points this season. They just happen to just kind of split time. So I'm going Jameis here. The fact that he can run, he still has the weapons there. They're probably playing from behind. Good conditions down in Tampa Bay. I'm going to go there, and I'm recognizing that the team is such a mess that he could not start the third quarter if he has 2 bad picks or something like that.
Is it the same for you on both sides?
No, actually, I think you can go. I'd rather play Mahomes on DraftKings. That was Jameis on FanDuel, but Mahomes is so expensive on FanDuel that I don't think you need to pay up. The salary gap is a little thinner on DraftKings.
And you have so much more money to spend because everyone's a lot cheaper on DraftKings.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm Mahomes on DraftKings. I've got Winston and FanDuel tags. Are you changing things up at all?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at FanDuel too. I'm more of a DraftKings guy. But I mean, knowing the pricing, like on DraftKings, I think Mahomes is too expensive on DraftKings this week. Like he's at 7,600. No other quarterback is above 66. So you're paying like
you're not willing to pay 7,600?
No, I don't think I am. Like Oakland. So the thing is like Oakland has. They're not good. I'm not going to like dance around that and say that they're good, but they've only allowed one truly elite performance this year of more than 25 points to a quarterback. It's because they can't. Yeah, like Ryan Tannehill, this is back in week 3. But the thing is like all this time, no team ever has to throw against them. Like you had Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Phillip Rivers again. Like, so they've played a lot of quarterbacks who put up fantasy points, but none of these guys have put up truly elite performances. I think you would get a solid floor with Mahomes, but when you're paying 7,600, you essentially need Patrick Mahomes to go off. Like that's why you're paying for him, because you're going to have to like sacrifice other positions. So like, I can't do it this week. I mean, I think Cam Newton presents a higher ceiling and you could have him for a grand less, but my cash game quarterback is Jared Goff.
Jared Goff is not a bad call at all. I'm sure that's who Doug has in his top 3 with him. But let me say something on Mahomes first before we jump back over to Doug. Okay, Mahomes has played 3 games where he's thrown under 30 passes. So let's say he does that against Oakland. Remember, he's got an implied total of 36, which is astronomical. So even if he stops throwing in the second half, he's going to do a ton of damage in the first half in those 3 games with less than 30 attempts, which is what I'm expecting this week. He averages 29 fantasy points, guys. Like, I can't ignore that. With the price on DraftKings being as close as it is, I'm looking at our model here. We've got Patrick Mahomes as the second best value. I think he's a great play. Doug, is Jared Goff your number 3 option, or is it Cam Newton?
No, it was going to be Newton. There, in terms of fantasy points per dollar, we have them basically the same. So it's close in terms of Goff and Newton. I would go for cash. I'd go Newton's floor though, because he runs, and that's usually a tiebreaker for me. So if the price is pretty much the same,
defense is a lot crappier too. They're playing the Tampa Bay, yeah.
Right, you're getting the absolute worst ever pass defense, or one of them in Tampa Bay. People played Mullins last week against them just because it was Tampa Bay, not because he was anything and he stunk, but Cam's a totally different thing here. So I think in terms of cash games, I really want to take the running floor. I was going to throw Lamar Jackson in there too, mostly because of the running. We don't need to go down the Lamar Jackson route if you don't want to, but I do still think he is a cash game value, mostly because he's just a running back playing quarterback that will actually throw the ball a little bit too. So I think he's got a pretty high floor, especially if Baltimore They didn't do it in the first half last week, which was so weird. They came out and wanted to make him a pocket passer, and then realized that really wasn't going to work. And then, right in the last drive of the first half, started going back to him in the RPO, and then the whole second half they did it. I think if they come out this week and do that again, he has a really high floor. So Goff is not really a cash game thing, but I'm almost always just looking for quarterbacks that run.
Yeah, we named the only 5 I'm willing to consider on FanDuel in the order I've got them in. On FanDuel, this is Winston, Jackson, Newton, Mahomes, and Jared Goff. Tags, why don't you talk up Jared Goff, and then I'll share mine on DraftKings.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing is people are going to look at the Lions and think like, oh, should we play anybody against the Lions? I mean, they've allowed the 12th most fantasy points, but that's not like the Bucs. You could attack them. It's not like, like talking about Jameis Winston. I like Winston. I don't think he's a bad play at all. But in regards to Detroit, the reason that they haven't allowed so many points is because teams just haven't had to throw against them. They've allowed 8.65 yards per attempt. That's the second highest in the NFL. They've allowed a 69% completion rate, which is the fourth highest in the NFL. And they've allowed a 7.3% touchdown rate, which is the second highest in the NFL. The issue is that teams haven't thrown a bunch. They've only averaged 29.7 attempts per game against them, which is the second lowest in the NFL. So you can kind of see where all this kind of comes into play. We had Todd Gurley, who looked like he sort of injured himself in the game against the Chiefs. I know they had their bye week, but they're going to play inside of a dome. And we've seen these games before with Jared Goff and the Rams. Granted, he might throw the ball 29 times. That might actually happen. But their efficiency on offense is ridiculous. And knowing that they've allowed this much production to teams that honestly the Lions schedule hasn't been terrible. In terms of who they've played, they haven't played a whole bunch of elite quarterbacks. So I just feel like this matchup is just the efficiency is going to be way too good for Jared Goff here. They're coming off the bye.
We've seen a couple rough games from him though. I mean, week 6 in Denver, he went 14 for 28 with 0 touchdowns, 7 fantasy points. Cam Newton never does that. Cam Newton has multiple touchdowns in 10 straight games. He's got at least 15 fantasy points every game. Do you think that Goff could have a stinker?
I don't think so. I mean, the only concern is that he doesn't throw the ball 30 times. That's the only concern I have, and I think that's a real concern with Patrick Mahomes too, but you're getting Goff for cheaper. I'm worried about Mahomes and without Sammy Watkins, because I don't think Sammy Watkins plays, so therefore I just think that this is a Kareem Hunt day. So once we get to the running backs, Kareem Hunt is kind of like a must play for me.
Yeah, Goff is $1,200 cheaper than Mahomes on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is $1,100 cheaper. And I really think he might be an MVP candidate at this point. I think it's Mahomes, Breeze, and Goff. I don't know if anyone else has a chance. Maybe Gurley if he catches fire again. But, I mean, Goff has been fantastic. Our consensus projections has him at 24.7 projected points. Number 4, guys, is all the way down at 21.1 points. So, I mean, that is significantly higher. And he's a pretty reasonable value. I don't think it's a bad play at all. Now, the other guy I wanted to mention, I wouldn't consider him on FanDuel, but I love his price on DraftKings. Guys, tell me what you think about Kirk Cousins at New England, $5,500. He's my number 2 bet behind Patrick Mahomes on that site.
Yeah, it stands to reason he's gonna have to throw. So you like that about him. They haven't really totally committed to one thing in the running game, and they've just had 38 passes, 46 in the last 2. He's thrown about 40 times in the last 4 or 5 games. So I like that. He's just not a guy for me in cash. I just think our model has these other guys so far above. And actually, it's funny. I hadn't really paid too much attention to Goff. We do have him as the 3rd overall highest projected quarterback, at least on FanDuel, with the price difference making the difference about pivoting off to Winston. It strikes me as a GPP play only for me on Cousins, and I'd probably want to have a part of either Brady or New England going back the other way, because it probably just ends up meaning it's some kind of shootout. Not a cash game play for me, though.
I actually agree with that. I actually liked Cousins earlier in the week, and but I moved off of that because Stephon Diggs hasn't practiced the last 2 days, and Stephon Diggs is when he plays hurt, he doesn't play very well. So that's really concerning that he's missed the last couple of days. So I'm actually gonna end up staying away from that game altogether, which is really weird. That game feels like it should be on Sunday night or something, like the Vikings and the Patriots. But as for Goff, another reason I do like him is because Detroit's defense, the run defense, ever since Damon Harrison got there, has been legit. So I mean, if we know Gurley's gonna get his, right, and so Gurley can get it through the air too. So would it shock you to see Todd Gurley catch 2 touchdown passes in this game? Not me. So like I said, I think Goff is my cash quarterback this week.
All right, guys, let's go running back here. And Tags, you already alluded to your top play. You like Kareem Hunt more than Todd Gurley this week?
I do. I mean, you're getting a discount. It's a $1,500 discount on him. I'm not against Gurley at all. I don't think you should ever cross off Gurley and say, I'm not going to play him. that'll bite you in the butt. But Detroit has been better against the run as of late. Like, legit, that's the only area of their defense that's playing well, and that's why you're starting to see some of these quarterbacks put up some better numbers against them because their secondary is just terrible. So I just think the discount to Hunt is just so good. I mean, Oakland allows the most rushing yards per game. They're coming off the bye. He was able to get somewhat of a break. I think he eclipses 20 carries in this game. I think he's a lock for 100 yards, at least a touchdown, if not 2 of them. So, I mean, that at 7,800 to save $1,500, I'll go down to him.
Doug, we love heavy favorites. I think you have to if you're a DFS guy for when you're looking for running backs, but does it ever come to a point where you can be too heavy of a favorite? Like 15.5 point spread? Are we going to see a bunch of Spencer Ware in the second half?
Yeah, it's funny about that because I did a study on this, and I actually did it based on just overall team running projections, not in terms of like the one specific bell cow kind of guy. It didn't really. So it's you can get into these territories. I think it mostly just makes sense to project all the carries onto the lead guy and just sort of just kind of wing in a prayer that they're not going to get into a blowout. So I'm always wanting to target these heavy favorites. I'm not so worried about the blowout. One thing I'll say is Hunt is a great value on DraftKings. The fact that he's below the other top 2 guys, McCaffrey and Gurley, by over 1,000 or 1,500 makes a huge difference for him. So I think in terms of overall value, he's great. The only thing I get a little concerned with Hunt is if you look at him in terms of overall volume and usage this year, he's pretty far down the list. When I think of him as one of these very heavy just usage kind of guys, just because he's on a great offense and he's had those games. But he's sitting like 11th or 12th overall in terms of touches per game. I'm calling touches carries plus targets. And so that's like, now again, his carries and targets are of a higher value than David Johnson's, let's say, right? Like if David Johnson was getting more touches, I would still favor Hunt's touches because they're just so much better because of the team. And he just is so far. He's just significantly below these other guys in terms of how they have been using him. Some of that's game script. So that's my only real concern. I think on DraftKings you just say screw it and play him at 7,800 because he's just cheaper than the other tier. On FanDuel I'd be a little bit more worried that we just haven't seen a ton of like 25 touch games out of him this season because they have these other weapons. So that's really my only concern. And yes, I think he's a great value.
Tags, wouldn't it just be amazing if we could use Hunt, McCaffrey, and Gurley this week? All 3 of them are great plays.
Oh, they are. They really are. I mean, that's the thing you have to worry about with McCaffrey. Do the touchdowns end at some point? Like they're playing so well, and it's like
not against Tampa. I mean, it's probably, but not against Tampa.
People said the same thing about DJ Moore the last time they played Tampa too. And I remember I think DJ Moore was like 4,200 that week, maybe even 3,800. And he didn't do anything. So people were like put off, and he hurt cash games a lot. So it's like, you just have to think about this Carolina offense. They do have a lot of avenues to score points. We could go back to Cam Newton scoring the rushing touchdowns, not Christian McCaffrey. So I'm not saying I don't like McCaffrey because I know there's a lot of people out there that think that I absolutely hate the guy.
He's the one you're leaving out, though. You're playing Gurley and Hunt?
Yeah, I'd play Gurley over him because I know Gurley's guaranteed a touchdown. Like, that's going to happen, whereas McCaffrey, I can't say that about. I think he comes with a high floor. Definitely Hunt, because, again, I'm with you, actually, in regards to the workload. I realized that when I was doing the primer this week is that Kareem Hunt has just one game all year with more than 19 carries. So, he hasn't had that massive touch game. So I do think you're going to see Spencer Ware in here, but I do think the damage will already have been done.
You know, it's close enough for me. I agree. I've got them in that order, Hunt, and then Gurley, and then McCaffrey for my preference. But I've got them close enough with Gurley and McCaffrey that, the difference in salary was enough to sway me because I need that money to get the wide receivers and the tight end and the quarterback and the defense that I want. Doug, which one are you going with out of the 3, or are you going with 2 of them?
Saying I played McCaffrey in all cash games last week, right? So I thought that the having Funchess not around for me and at least our model made a big difference in what he was going to expect in targets. So we liked him going into last week. Funchess is coming back this week. That dings him down a little bit for me in the target share. But I will say if I'm playing Newton in cash, I probably just want to make sure I'm playing McCaffrey as well. And I don't know, there's not really a great math reasoning behind that. That's more of just a feel, sort of my own mental stability in terms of who's going to end up getting the touchdowns if they're going to put up a lot of points.
I mean, they're going to score touchdowns. Implied total 29 for Carolina.
I think I just want to feel better about it. And so if I'm playing Newton, I'm definitely playing McCaffrey. We have McCaffrey as a slight favorite at a points per dollar, at least on FanDuel. There's a couple other ways to spend down. So I think there's a case to be made for fading all 3 too. It's not going to feel amazing, but if I had to choose right now, I'd probably go McCaffrey. And I wouldn't feel it's not a huge conviction play. It's more just probably matchup. The target share is great for him, and I did like that he got those red zone carries last week, as they sort of moved in that direction. And I probably want to make sure I stacked him with Cam if I was doing it.
So if we're going cheaper, there's two really good plays. At least I think so. Phillip Lindsay at Cincinnati, Aaron Jones at home against Arizona, 14-point favorites. It's supposed to snow. Do you love either of these plays more than the other tags?
Phillip Lindsay's an awesome play. Lindsay's been like on fire lately. He's running like a madman, and Denver's not going to take the ball out of his hands. They just lost another tight end, so you might see him used more in the passing game. So it's like he's scored 20 or more DK points in 3 of the last 4 weeks, and he's going up against a Bengals team that their opponents average over 70 plays per game. I mean, even if Keenum throws the ball 35 times, you're going to get 35 rushing attempts out of this team. And then on top of that, the Bengals, we've played 11 games, guys. So like we're now 11 games into the season. The Bengals have allowed 7 20-point running backs in PPR formats. 7 of them. So, I mean, Royce Freeman's always going to be there to like potentially steal a touchdown, but that's more than baked into his price this week. Phillip Lindsay, 15 PPR points. That's all you need out of him to hit 3 times. Like, that's nothing. So
his consensus projections have him at 21.
Yeah, I like Phillip Lindsay a lot. He's definitely in my cash game lineup.
All right. I can't use him on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I agree. In fact, I will go as far as saying he would be my lock on DraftKings. I'll save my FanDuel one for later in the show when we give our lock of the week and our stack of the week. Now, Doug, what do you think about Phillip Lindsay and Aaron Jones both?
Yeah, I'm going Jones. If I'm choosing, the Royce Freeman thing still kind of sticks too much around for me. Like the Green Bay's all but phased Jamal Williams out of the picture here. The fact that Lindsay did outsnap him 2-1 last week. He's clearly the better running back, so I don't think that's not in question at all. But teams that have like teams like Denver that just want to just never make a guy the guy always just scare me. And now, even when Freeman was out, they just had Booker just around enough. That's the only reason I would go.
I've been burned by that too many times. I'm with you. I got Jones.
Teams just we see it with Atlanta too. It's like, oh, Devontae Freeman's out. Well, now Ito Smith's the running back too. Like they don't want to give one guy all the carries, and Denver is just that kind of team. And it's the difference and Green Bay is just kind of not. And Aaron Jones, that's the difference for me. And plus, I mean, we're talking about huge home favorites, and Green Bay is -14, which actually probably seems a little too high for me. It seems like a little publicly on Green Bay's side. But either way, they're still probably real life, at least double-digit favorites. I think from that standpoint, the home favorite piece, the fact that I'm not worried about Jamal Williams cutting into it, he is very close to that top tier of usage kind of running backs for me, and he's just priced, I don't know, 15 to 20% less than some of these other guys. So I think for me, it's kind of clearly Jones. I don't mind Lindsay, but just the Royce Freeman thing, I hate that he's just still around, and that's like sort of seems like their plan.
Aaron Jones is a phenomenal play too. You guys are right on that one. I won't fight that one at all. I think he's a great play too. I mean, you could make the case for both of them. But here's my question to you, Doug. Would you rather let's say if you're trying to save some money and like you had to choose one of those guys, like would it make sense to go down to Lamar Miller at 4,600 on DK?
It's funny about Lamar Miller. Recency bias can really be an annoying thing in terms of players. So he's coming off a great game. We've seen lots of games where he's just not very good, and he's just so cheap. And I think that the fact that they want to give him the ball, again, I know he's coming off his best game of the season, but the price didn't move. 4,600. He is in our top overall DraftKings lineup right now, so I'm not going to say he's, according to our system right now, Thursday. This is a guy to play in cash. And I'm just thinking that it's Lamar Miller, and I kind of don't want to do it. Cleveland's defense is still kind of good. So I wouldn't pivot off Jones to go down to Lamar Miller to save money. I would need to have a really, really good way to offset what I'm paying up for somewhere else, and I'm just not sure I see it. And I still like Lamar Miller too. Like I'm not making an excuse against him. Like I said, he's in our overall lineup right now. Yeah, so those are kind of like my rambling thoughts on Miller. He's a good play. He's very cheap, and he is basically the guy they want to give the ball to.
Yeah, and so like Lamar Miller, that's like the thing is like I'm usually right there with you, like where he's been a boring fantasy play. But I mean, over the last 5 games for him, he's totaled 502 yards on 84 carries, 3 touchdowns. The only game he busted in that span was against Denver. And by the way, Denver's been phenomenal against the run as of late. Denver has played against James Conner, Melvin Gordon, Lamar Miller, Kareem Hunt, and David Johnson in the last 5 weeks. None of those running backs top 69 yards. Only Melvin Gordon finished as a top 15 running back. So it's just like they've been really good against the run. So I don't want to hold that game against him. Obviously, this team is playing very well. They're playing good defense. I just think Lamar Miller, like that's another team, like the Browns. I won't say I like him more than Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones just costs, I think it's like $2,100 more. And that's what it comes down to. Like, I'd love to have Aaron Jones in my lineup, but he's 6,700. Phillip Lindsay's 54, and then you go down to 46 for Lamar Miller. I think we can all agree though that like this these running backs are like the mid-price, low-price ones, like that you should be deciding in between. Like you're going to grab one of Hunt, Gurley, McCaffrey, one of those guys up top, and then you're going to probably stick in two of these other guys.
One thing about Lamar Miller too. I mean, again, quality of touches matters here. Kareem Hunt 19.6 touches per game. Miller, the next guy behind him, at 18.9. Like so, he's a guy that gets he gets a lot of looks. Three targets a game about. That's right around where Hunt is too.
And QT might not play, so if QT doesn't play
for that price, man, that is so good.
Again, like I ran 50 lineups right now on our site. Lamar Miller's in 80% of them. It's hard to get away. It's mostly just hard to get away from the $4,600 price. That's where I would probably end up landing on him.
And on FanDuel, he's $6,300. We're talking about Aaron Jones is $1,300 more expensive. Philip Lindsay's $700 more expensive. There's three other plays, I think, that some people are going to be using. Now, I want your insight on these guys in case we should probably just, avoid them. Matt Breida against Seattle. Carlos Hyde with Leonard Fournette out against Indianapolis. And then the last one is Gus Edwards at Atlanta. Doug, we'll let you go first on these three.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Edwards. He's the guy that I have out of those three. I have Breida landed on the injury report this morning, so I don't know what's going to happen there. He probably.
Oh no! I was about to say he's healthy.
If he's there, then I think that takes him out of the contention. Jacksonville's such a mess. Like, do you really want to play Carlos Hyde? Like,
no, I don't. And Yeldon's going to get some run anyway. Like, I don't think it's
this team. I know they're moving in a different direction with a quarterback. It's not like it's not a better direction. It's just a equally crappy direction. So, but my only issue with I like Edwards. Edwards is a guy right now in our top overall FanDuel lineup, mostly on just the volume carries. He's never going to catch a pass, which does ding him. He's really hard to play on DraftKings because of that. Because I don't think he has a target over the last 2 weeks. Alex Collins. It might be practicing. That would probably affect my projection on Edwards a little bit, though it does seem like he's the plan. I would have to ding him down just a little bit, although it seems like he's the guy they want to run with Lamar Jackson in that scheme. So that does help him. He's probably run a little bad on touchdowns, and if you figure that he's going to be just the guy going forward. So of the three, I greatly want to play Edwards over the other guys. I don't think it's actually all that close for me.
Tags, you sounded bummed about Breida. Were you planning on playing him or at least considering it?
He would have been a tournament play for me for sure. I wouldn't play him in cash because of all the guys we talked about already, but I just looked, and Breida, he's on the injury report with an ankle injury. He was limited at Wednesday's practice, so that's definitely something that would totally move you off him in cash because he's someone who's dealt with ankle injuries throughout the season. And it really sucks because he's been playing fantastic football. Seattle's been really terrible against the run as of late. I mean, we saw McCaffrey, what he did to him last week. So, no, I don't think you need to go to any of these guys. Gus Edwards, game script is a real concern for me with him.
There's just too many good plays at the top. You don't need to consider those ones.
There really is. He's going to be over-owned for what he is. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to let you down like 100% because he doesn't play in the passing game. And if the game goes into a negative game script where it's like Atlanta jumps out to a 10-point lead, I don't think we see him getting 18-plus carries in the game. So those are issues in a cash game lineup. If you want to play in tournaments, I guess, but I don't think the upside's there for him in tournaments either because, again, he's not involved in the passing game.
I think Matt Breida is the kind of guy where it's like, if you played him, I wouldn't judge you, but I've got him like number 8, number 9 in cash games, so there's just too many better plays. I'm going to have a hard time deciding between the top 5 or 6 because there's some good ones in there. We'll go to wide receiver here in just a second, but first I want to tell you about a contest going on at FanDuel this weekend. So I've been telling you about this World Fantasy Football Championship qualifier. So here's how it works. 75 people advance to New York City for the live final, and if you get number 1, 500,000, number 2, 200,000, number 3, 100,000, plus it's an experience that you'll just never forget the rest of your life. I really want to go, haven't won a ticket this year. Now is your last chance. You can compete against me. It's $9 to enter this week, and there's only 5,000 people in it. So it's not like one of these contests with, 100,000 people you have to beat. There's just 5,000, $9, get a chance to win yourself $500,000. All right, guys, so let's go on over to wide receiver. And, the top plays, there's just really nothing that interests me this week for cash games. And I want to spend up at running back, so I'm spending down at wide receiver. Now, am I wrong, Tags? Is there someone at the top that you would definitely play?
It was looking like Adam Thielen, but with Diggs getting dinged up, this worries me even more because it's like, you couldn't just say we're going to focus on Thielen and let Diggs run wild on our secondary. So with Diggs dinged up, it's worrying me a little bit on Thielen. So I think DeAndre Hopkins is a phenomenal play. Like, I love Hopkins, but I don't have the money for him this week, unfortunately. So my top play at wide receiver is Robert Woods.
Okay. I mean, he's a safe play and everything like that. But let me ask you about Hopkins first. Because the past 2 games, he only has 6 targets. In fact, since week 6, he only has more than 8 targets once. Does that not concern you?
No, it doesn't. Like he's still the guy here against the Browns wide receivers. Like, so we talk about the fact that, Deshaun Watson hasn't thrown the ball more than 25 times since week 5. And going into this matchup against the Browns, they're not going to total 50 rushing attempts. And that's essentially what it would take for him not to throw the ball, 30 plus times, just because I talked about the play count. Like you always look at that. Teams against the Browns rack up plays.
Well, a lot of that's the overtimes too, right?
Well, the overtimes contributed to it for sure, but it's still every week. It's a high volume game. Them and the Bengals are two matchups that you should attack. So wide receivers alone, not just like targets, but wide receivers alone average 24.1 targets per game against the Browns. That's the second highest mark in the league. And knowing that QT is, I don't think QT plays this week. I'm just saying that. Denzel Ward has been good as a rookie, but Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Tyrell Williams, Antonio Brown twice, Julio Jones, and Mike Evans all scored more than 17.7 PPR points against them. So Demaryius Thomas is fine as a player. And I don't think that he's going to score 2 touchdowns again this year, but DeAndre Hopkins is the guy. Coming into this last week, every game this year, I want to say he put up at least 86 yards or a touchdown. So, even though that streak came to an end, I'm not going to hold that against him. So I like him. I'm not going to spend up on him just because I don't have those funds, because I think Robert Woods might have I don't want to say a similar upside. I don't think he has as much upside as Hopkins does, but I think Woods is safe for 80 to 120 yards and a touchdown.
Doug, I'm stacking Mike Evans with Jameis Winston as the only wide receiver I'm spending up on. Do you like Evans? Do you like Hopkins, Thielen, Woods? Any of these guys near the top?
Yeah, I love Woods. I actually love Cooks too. It's a shame. The wide receivers I like the most are the teams that are likely to figure in blowouts where they just might not do anything in the second half, and it's KC and the Rams. And so I love the Woods thing. I like Cooks as well. It's kind of actually hard for me to distinguish between the two of them. They've basically swapped target share over a couple weeks, even with Cup out. So I think there's volume for them there. I actually would be willing to pay up for Tyreek Hill if Sammy Watkins was out again. So the Watkins thing actually does make a difference for me on Tyreek. He's got 24 targets over the last 2 weeks with Watkins out. I get one of them was that 14 target just crazy video game that happened 2 Monday nights ago. So you really can't project that many targets, but he got 10 the week before and he's been great. He's got 4 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He's a guy where if you can give him double-digit targets, sort of like in that same Kareem Hunt land of targets are just born differently for him. If he's getting the ball, if he's getting 10 looks a game, then those 10 looks are better than almost any other wide receiver in football for what he can do after the catch, right? So I think...
Have you seen his game log? Holy cow.
So the Watkins thing matters for me. This is why it matters, right? Because his target share is double digits every time Watkins has either not played or gone out of the game early, which I think was the one that happened earlier in the season. He's seen double digit targets in all, I think it's either 3 or 4 games. He would be a guy that I'd be willing to pay up for, and it's only on that Watkins news. So I think he's actually my overall top wide receiver play on the week this week. It's kind of not even that close, to be honest with you. Devontae Adams is sort of close there, I guess. But I love Hill this week.
I saw Tyreek Hill number 1 ECR, and I kind of did a double take. Is this real life? What is going on here? Why is this happening? And then I'm looking right now at the leaders for the season, okay? So you got your top 5. They're all really close to each other. Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen. They're all within 10 points of each other. And then you go up 21 points, and you've got Tyreek Hill at number 1. He's been that good.
On 30 less targets. His fantasy output per target is just unbelievable. And the only thing you're ever worried about him is the price gets too high and he gets 7 targets because they have just so many other weapons to throw to. So if they're down a weapon, even in a tight spread game, that's where I would defer to him over the Cooks Woods thing, because I think he just he's not going to get cannibalized as much as maybe those guys will if they just pick out a matchup they like.
You guys want to hear a crazy stat that I found earlier today? The Raiders. So I'm not talking anybody off Tyreek Hill. It makes all the sense in the world, but here's a crazy stat. The Raiders have not allowed a wide receiver more than 21 PPR points all season long. And as a matter of fact, just 1 over 17 PPR points. And that was Jakeem Grant, who caught 2 touchdowns. And that's what it took for him to get there. So, Jakeem Grant was the only wide receiver who's finished as a top 16 wide receiver against the Raiders, which is just stupid, right?
Yeah, but I'm going to take issue with that, because if you look at the teams they've played, how many real wide receiver ones have they played? I'm going to roll through the list very quickly here. Ready? Broncos, they don't have one. Dolphins, definitely not. Browns, no. Chargers with Keenan Allen twice, so yes. So then Doug Baldwin, the Seahawks. The Colts, they spread the ball around, and I actually think Hilton was out this game anyway. 49ers banged up, and then Cardinals and Ravens. So I get what you're saying, that stat looks good, but if you look down the list of the guys they've actually played, like they have not played any good, really good wide receivers. So that's the only reason I hate to just crap on it. It's warranted. I think it makes.
That's why we have these conversations, man. All the information.
And I've been wrong about this, though, because I did the same thing with the Browns' run defense last year, where I was like, oh, they never played a running back. But then you can just be good also. You know what I mean? So it's sometimes hard to figure out the signal and the noise on these things. But, yeah, no, looking down this list, they really just haven't played any wide receivers to me.
You know, it feels like every single week there's 2 or 3 plays that really stand out. Our projected ownership shows that that's just not the case this week. We've got 12 guys projected between 15 and 31%. How do you pick out of all these guys? I mean, there's plenty of them who are decent plays. Emmanuel Sanders at Cincinnati, Odell Beckham against Chicago, Stephon Diggs against the Patriots if he plays, Mike Evans, DJ Moore against Tampa Bay, Adam Thielen, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins. Just goes on and on and on. I mean, do you just pick 3 and hope that they get in the end zone?
You didn't even mention Kenny Golladay. I mean, what do you guys think on Golladay? Because without Marvin Jones, they're likely going to be playing from behind. Our metrics have him in a decent, lining up at least kind of well against what the Rams are going to throw at them. It doesn't look like he's going to get like Marcus Peters a ton based on how he lines up. So would he fit in that list for you? Because I'm actually pretty high on him without Jones there. They have shown the willingness to kind of target him a lot. Does he fit into that group for you?
He's number 13 on our projected ownership.
If Aqib Talib plays, no.
Oh, I had him out. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm having him out right now, but that would probably change our projection as well. Because I'm.
Oh yeah, if he's out, 100%. I love Golladay, especially at his price 6,700. Like he's going to get double-digit targets against Marcus Peters, and he sucks. So like seriously, yeah. But if Aqib Talib plays, that's really when he went down. Is really when the Rams defense took a turn for the worse, and like they've been one to target every single week because Marcus Peters just is not a shadow cornerback. So if Talib plays, it puts Peters back in his place, and kind of like he's more of that one-sided cornerback. So that would concern me. But if Talib is out, I think Golladay is a fantastic play.
Yeah, I've got Golladay on my radar. I'm not playing him because I just don't have the funds to do it. Is he your favorite mid-range play, Doug, or do you like someone like Julian Edelman, maybe Tyler Lockett, Adam Humphries, T.Y. Hilton?
Yeah, that's the hard part about this week, and I think you're right. This middle tier of wide receiver is just not very good. The Edelman kind of gets dinged in a little bit as when Gronk comes back.
I mean, I guess Woods belongs in that tier. He's 7,300 on FanDuel. That's the same price as Golladay.
Yeah, the problem is you get stuck in a price crunch. If you start rostering even these mid $7,000 guys, you are taking a hit at running back. So it's really going to be a matter of how much you value guys like that top 3 that we mentioned, Gurley, McCaffrey, and Hunt. And I probably will end up. We have Woods and Golladay projected at right around the exact same 16.5 to 16.47. So I don't know, decimal points off. They're the same price. Those are the guys that kind of ring in there for me. Our system likes Deshaun Jackson at 5,500 on FanDuel and just kind of hoping for a home run.
Not in cash games, obviously, right?
I don't know though. 5,500 though. That's where you actually start thinking about it in cash games because you say 5,500 is basically bottom of the barrel wide receiver pricing, and so
he's still getting the targets too. Like I know the yards haven't been there, but he's getting plenty of work.
I was surprised when I saw him kind of like creep into when I was calculating some lineups here because I was like, well, Deshaun Jackson. But then you look at 8 targets last week.
Not just last week either. 8, 7, 8 in the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, he's a guy at 50. It's mostly just 5,500. If he was 6,500, we wouldn't even be talking about it. But if he's going to get close to a punt play wide receiver, there's a ton of upside on his price to the point where the upside might outweigh the risk in terms of cash. It's not going to be something I love clicking on come Sunday, and I could see myself doing it too.
Tags mid-range wide receivers. Who do you like?
Well, I mean, if Dante Jackson's out for Carolina, he hurt his quad last week. That would actually be an upgrade for Deshaun Jackson because he'd be the one covering him. So, Jackson has the speed to hang with Deshaun Jackson. That's why I didn't like Deshaun in the first matchup they played. But if Dante Jackson's out, it would upgrade his matchup for sure. I think Josh Gordon's a good play, man.
Good call. I forgot about him. Yeah.
The Vikings, it seems like they're going to be without Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes, if you saw like how he hurt his hamstring, like how he looked after that was not. And I'm so tired of the Vikings trying to tell us about a mild hamstring pull. They said the same thing about Dalvin Cook. He was out 5 weeks. So, like, I'm not buying it. I don't think Xavier Rhodes plays for a couple weeks. And that would put Josh Gordon against Trey Waynes in coverage. I mean, Trey Waynes is not...
He's talented, but he's not Xavier Rhodes.
No, he's not anybody to worry about with Josh Gordon. Like, Josh Gordon could win one-on-one battles with him all day long. So
I like that call, man.
Him and Robert Woods are my favorite two in that middle tier.
Cool. I like DJ Moore. We already mentioned Robert Woods. Those are two of my favorites. Now, if you're going really cheap, Doug, do you have anyone that you like?
He's not really cheap. Corey Davis he's seen some target share over the last couple weeks. Not a great matchup with the Jets here. Mariota was like ultra efficient last week, which was crazy. They lost. I don't think did he throw it in completion? I'm not sure. Like, it was crazy they lost.
Yeah, he threw one. Yeah, I think there was one.
Yeah, it was crazy they lost with that kind of efficiency. But Davis is still the WR1 there. So he's a guy that I could maybe take a flyer on. I don't love the matchup. They're not projected for a lot of points. There just isn't a lot to love in the cheap realm. The other team I'm probably keeping an eye on here is what's going to happen with Goodwin and Garcon. If either of them came back, I really wouldn't want to do it. But if both were not to play, I could probably talk myself into Dante Pettis. And this is just where I'm looking to punt away the position. That's going to be totally injury news. I don't think either have practiced this week, and they really haven't seemed on track to play or even close the last couple weeks. So I doubt they play. I could talk myself into a dart throw at Dante Pettis. Again, he falls into and I just noticed this thing on Deshaun Jackson. I forgot that he was coming back with a thumb injury. But these are just kind of dart throws. I wouldn't feel good about any of it. But in a week where I do want to grab as much upper tier guys as possible, if the middle tier is not going to look good, I can talk myself into sort of throwing it away and just kind of hoping it works out. DJ Moore would be there too if Funch just didn't play too. So it's just a group of guys that all exist in the same sort of unexciting, but I get that it's a means to an end because I'm trying to get an expensive guy in there at the top.
There's a couple guys that I like here in this cheap range. Jarvis Landry's 5,500 on FanDuel. Cortland Sutton against Cincinnati. I think everyone's forgot how talented he is, and Cincinnati's horrible. Chris Godwin's really cheap against Carolina. He's been involved. Sterling Shepard against Chicago I like. What about Chris Conley against Oakland? The minimum price, $4,500. Tags, do you like any of these guys?
Well, on FanDuel, if he's 4,500, you kind of have to play him. I think that's
if Sammy Watkins is out, obviously.
Well, yeah, I don't think Sammy Watkins plays, honestly. I mean, even if he's active.
I just want to clarify in case anyone was thinking, hey, Sammy's active. Should I still play Chris Conley? No.
Well, I don't even know if Sammy plays if he's active. We saw that act already. That was frustrating, man. I hate it when they do that stuff. But no, Conley definitely has the upside to play. Like you mentioned, Godwin. I think Godwin's a solid play, and it kind of goes to what Doug was talking about. And I loved what Doug said. And cash is fine. The reason I say that is because on both sites, you're getting down towards the minimum, right? On DraftKings, he's 3,900. And if you're looking to pay up for top tier guys, you're going to take risk down there. There's nobody down there that's safe. Like, let's not pretend you could find someone down at, 35, 4,000 that is going to get 8 targets in a game. So why not take the guy who's got some of the most upside against a Carolina defense that's really been heading south against the pass? Like, they cannot stop the pass to save their life. Might be down Dante Jackson. Deshaun Jackson's been dealing with his hand or wrist injury or whatever it is, missing some practice time. So Godwin has seen increased snaps. So yeah, I mean, you kind of have to take a shot on some of these guys. I do like him. If you're looking for a higher floor option, I think Bruce Ellington at 3,500 on DraftKings is not a bad play against the Rams for whatever reason. And I really I've tried searching for the explanation, but the Rams benched Nickel Roby Coleman. He's by far their best cornerback. And so they were putting Troy Hill in the slot, and Troy Hill's been burned all year long. I don't get it. I really don't understand because Roby Coleman, as far as I know, is healthy. I don't know because if they put him back there, it would be a downgrade. But still, at 3,500, you're getting a guy that's going to see 6+ targets. So I like Ellington down there, and then one really, it sucks because he didn't have a single friggin' catch last week. But Tajay Sharp against the Jets, I always attack.
It's a good matchup.
Buster screen, man. You attack that guy nonstop.
It's the best matchup
for 100%. It's so easy. Legitimately, you just if they see targets against the Jets in the slot, they're going to score.
It's a shame it's wasted on Tajay Sharp this week because I don't want to play him, but I always look for that too.
Yeah, Doug, what do you think about Robbie Anderson at 3,500 on DK?
Yeah, he kind of fits like that Deshaun Jackson. You're hoping that he grabs a ball in traffic or just kind of beats a guy on a deep route because that's really all you're ever getting from them. Sure. They did throw he's the quintessential home run guy. When it happens for him, it seems to happen and you win a tournament with him, or the other way it goes is you wonder if he's even playing. You have to turn the game on and see if you can see his little body with the light hair kind of running around the field. Because he is one of the guys that can completely disappear on you. But Jackson fits the same. He's just that kind of guy. It's are they going to catch a deep ball for a touchdown? If not, you're going to get you're kind of hoping for a 2 for 70 and a touchdown as your upside because you're never going to get any possessions. I actually want to go back to one guy you mentioned before, which is what are your thoughts on Jarvis Landry? He's a guy that saw double-digit targets in 7 of the first 8 weeks, and then they moved to Baker, and they've moved to Baker since then, but 7, 5, and 5 over the last 3. What do you think the truth is? Because he's clear. He seems like he would be the guy. He seems like he could have amazing upside, especially in PPR, even on FanDuel at the half-point PPR. And the production has just completely fallen off a cliff. Does he strike you as bounce back kind of guy? He's a guy that if we gave him 9 targets right now, he'd be in every single one of our lineups. It's just so hard to go there with a target share.
It's the whole new offense. They've been spreading the ball around quite a bit. So I don't want to bank on that because ever since Freddie Kitchens came in, that's when you've seen Landry's target total dip. I do think there's a middle ground here. I don't think Jarvis Landry is as bad as some people are saying he is. I do think he's a talented wide receiver. I do not think that he should be the focal point of an offense. So I think he's a complementary receiver that just happens to be really talented. So I'm curious to see what the Browns do this offseason. But I think they're somewhere in the line in the middle because, again, he's talented. Baker's playing exceptional right now. So it's like they're going to meet in the middle, and you're probably going to have a blow-up game at some point. I just don't think it's safe enough in cash right now.
All right, guys, let's go tight ends here. And there's a couple good plays. Eric Ebron, obviously, with Jack Doyle being gone because Andrew Luck just loves his tight end so much. Jacksonville's kind of vulnerable against tight ends. Heck, they've been vulnerable against everyone this year, really. Cameron Braid against Carolina. O.J. Howard out. Carolina's awful against tight ends. And then Travis Kelce against Oakland. Easy team to pick on. Kelce's been a boss. Those are my 3 favorite plays. You could also go down Kittle. Gronk is really cheap. Greg Olsen. There's some good plays, but which one stands out to you, Doug?
Ebron's going to be chalk if he plays. He hasn't practiced this week. Is my only concern. He didn't practice again today. That just came through. So
do you go Ali Cox all the way at the bottom?
Well, they love this. They've thrown him in the end zone. Much to my chagrin on the week where I played Doyle, and it was a tight end fest. It was just all the tight ends that weren't named Jack Doyle in that game. The tight end position for the Colts has been about as good as I think they might have the most points out of tight end this season. A lot of that is born on Ebron's crazy 11 touchdowns.
But that's what they do. I mean, you can't, yeah.
It's running hot, but it's also not running hot because it's if you can run hot on touchdowns, but you increase your chances of winning the lotto by just buying more lotto tickets, right? So it's like it strikes me as he probably can't keep the touchdown shares up. And does it really matter at these prices? Like, I think you just still play him. He's the 3rd overall fantasy tight end in the season, and that was with multiple weeks of being outsnapped by Jack Doyle. So I think if he plays, Ebron's the chalk. I don't think there's not going to be too much debate about it. If he doesn't play, I think, Ali Cox would probably be the guy you just punt away with. So I think you're fine on those guys. The other guys you mentioned, I think I like Kittle the most, only because the targets are there, and he's the worst quarterback play of the group that you mentioned. But
on DraftKings, I'm with you. I think Ebron's the play. I got Cameron Braid on FanDuel, though. He's $700 cheaper than Ebron.
I don't have them really all that close together. I'm fine with Braid. Braid was a guy I played in cash last week. He was chalk play. It makes sense. Caught a touchdown. I think that Ebron's, just the way they use him in the offense, I think there's a lot more safety there. And there's been weeks of being burned by the tight end position. I wonder how many more years we have left of the tight end position in fantasy in general. It's probably a discussion for a different day, but I think we might be nearing the end of, how many more years are we going to roster this position that has 7 viable guys on a given week?
Over under 2.5. Kickers are gone this offseason, and I think tight ends 2.5.
Smart teams just don't use them, so why bother? Most of the smart teams have phased this completely out of their game anyway, or unless they have just a transcendent sort of talent like a Kelce there anyway. I think for the most part. Anyway, different discussion. I'm all in Ebron. I think he's chalk this week.
Tags, who do you like? Ebron, Brait?
So I'm not on Ebron this week. Jacksonville, I don't know, man. Like, that defense, yes, they're in a bad spot. And I don't like the fact that he's been on the injury report. Like, there's a lot of things going on there. I would absolutely love to pay up for Kelce. I've talked on this show countless times about how bad the Raiders are against tight ends, and that continues to be the case. We've talked about...
And Watkins maybe being out.
Yeah, we talked about, earlier in the show how the competition they've played against hasn't been, great or anything like that, but Travis Kelce is just dominant. He's someone that's worth paying up for if you could find the room. But if I'm going down, I think Greg Olsen at 4,100 is not a bad play. Tampa has just continually, every single tight end that plays them just puts up fantasy points, including the last time that those two teams played. Greg Olsen, 6 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. He's at 4,100 on DK, good price. But then Cameron Brate, 3,700. I don't think you could pass that up. Carolina has allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. And then even Kyle Rudolph at 3,600 against the Patriots. There's a lot of good plays at tight end this week. So I don't necessarily think any of them are chalk outside of if you can get up to Kelce, because Kelsey's just a phenomenal play. It's just, can you find $7K to spend on your tight end?
Let me ask you this about Brait, because I want to play him, but here's my hesitation. His high for the season is 34 receiving yards.
Well, he was also playing alongside O.J. Howard for the majority of that. So, I mean, San Francisco last week wasn't like a phenomenal match, but with Jameis Winston, he's going to get targeted. So we take the touchdown last week, right? But it wasn't a great matchup. This is actually a great matchup. So, yeah, I like him this week.
It makes me so nervous, man.
So O.J. Howard, the last time they played, O.J. Howard had 53 yards, 2 touchdowns against Carolina.
And that is just one thing about him, though, that it's been just proven time again that is what the Bucs want to do in the red zone. They want to throw to the tight end. And so
Jameis loves Brait, too.
And for the most part of the tight end position, and it's just why it's such a silly position to roster at this point, you're really just kind of preying on the touchdown upside for almost every tight end. And if that's the case, and if you're just hoping on the touchdowns, then Tampa Bay tight ends do make a lot of sense. And so I think you just kind of need to resign yourself to a 4 for 34 on a good tight end day for most of these guys. Actually, one other injury note, because I just saw this, is that all the Colts tight ends sat out practice today. Ali Cox, Swoop, and Ebron all sat out. So I don't know if it was like a group tight end. They all went out last night and just got hammered and just all didn't want to practice today, or it's like they actually might have more significant tight end issues going forward. So anyway, just thought it was worth noting.
All right, guys, let's go DST. Then we'll cruise through GPP on our way back. Kansas City Chiefs are a favorite against Oakland. Pretty much whoever plays Oakland, you can guarantee they're going to be highest on our projected ownership. Now, Tex, is there somebody that you like more than them?
Not really more. I think the Texans are a good play, 2,700. I know Baker's been protected recently, but the opponents that they've played haven't been able to generate a pass rush. The Texans haven't had that issue. They're playing at home. They're a 6-point favorite. Like, there's a lot of the reasons to like Houston here. And I know you mentioned the Packers earlier in the week. They bring a nasty pass rush. And Josh Rosen, obviously, he doesn't have much pocket awareness right now. And and if he evades a sack, he's probably going to throw the ball up, and he's made some bad decisions. So I think those are my 3 defensive, like the ones that I would consider this week.
I don't think that's bad whatsoever. What about the Rams? Rams against Detroit. We've got them as our model has them as the highest value.
Yeah, I don't know. Doug, what do you think about the Rams? I don't think they're a bad play, but I don't know. That secondary's been terrible without Talib.
It's funny with defenses. This is this position I spend the least time thinking about, just because it's the variance on these on a week-to-week basis is just so high that
even in great matchups, yeah.
That's what I mean. So, but that being said, and there's these teams that haven't shown flashes of great defense, but their teams are playing are so bad. Like the Rams are 4,100 on FanDuel. That's paying nothing. The Chiefs are 43. I don't mind the Packers even at 44 because the Cardinals' offense is so bad. All these, the problem is, all of these teams are basically the same price, and they're all in like Packers. Basically, our system has Packers, Titans, Texans, Chiefs, Rams as all tied, and they're all the same price. So I think for me, and this is sort of going to sound like a cop-out answer, is I'm going to make every part of the rest of my team, and then if I need an extra 200, I'm not going to feel bad going from like the Titans to the Rams.
It's the right way to do it, though, right? I mean, I think Tennessee is a great play. Cleveland's also high in our model, at least on FanDuel, because they're $3,200, and people like to spend down. I'll tell you who I'm playing. It's number 2 on our value system. It's Arizona Cardinals. I know they're going up against Green Bay. Again, it's in the snow. Arizona's been consistent. They slow the game down. $2,800 can afford me to do anything I want with my lineup. Guys, I've got Kareem Hunt, Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelce, Todd Gurley, because I have the Arizona Cardinals in there.
Yeah, my business partner James, who was writing some of the cash game picks, he was kind of texting me off the air and saying, he's saying our system just wants to. He's like, Cardinals is a huge 14-point underdog. He's like, that's who the system's calling out, because here's the thing, because the spread on expected point scoring, because of the nature of how the points are scored for just fantasy outside of the touchdown, which is you really need to basically luck box your way into it, is almost never great enough to, unless you have like the Bears versus a backup quarterback, some on a short week or something like that. Outside of that, it's almost never worth it to pay up, because you just need so many things to work in your favor. To pay 20 to 40% more for a great defense it's just not. It shouldn't come at the expense of other parts of your lineup. So this is, again, I hate. It sounds like I'm copying out, or it sounds like dodging the question, but I just don't like. Even Denver against Cincinnati with Driscoll coming in. Even these guys, like for 2,700 on DraftKings, I don't know. That's fine. All these teams to me just strike me as the same. You can make cases really for all of them, and at that point, I'm going to make the rest of my lineup and then fit the money around on defense as it goes.
By the way, Arizona 27 sacks in their last 7 games. That is hauling, guys.
Green Bay is overrated, too. So this 14-point line is too high. I don't really talk a lot about betting here.
That was my easiest pick of the week.
Green Bay just really shouldn't be a 14-point favorite almost over anybody. I just don't really kind of totally see it. So I think just kind of punting with the position, just hoping you get there on a sack or two on a less than mobile Aaron Rodgers, I think does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'll take 5 points for sure. Guys, let's go GPP, and we're just going to name them. No analysis. We'll just name some plays that we like. Tag, you start us with DST.
I named some of my favorite ones. I typically stick with the same ones, the same group. I don't change too much when it comes to tournaments, but if you're looking for one, I think the Vikings, they're just too good of a defense to cost 2,100.
All right, Doug, who do you have?
Yeah, Colts. They get the backup quarterback in Jacksonville. That offense couldn't be worse. No running back, no quarterback. How are they going to get the ball down the field? Like I just don't see it. I would go the Colts there and hope you get maybe a pick six off a mistake.
The Bengals are awful, but they're going up against Case Keenum. They've got 4 touchdowns on the year. I'm not saying that's repeatable. I'm just saying horrible defenses can score touchdowns. So I'm going with the Bengals against Denver. No one is going to play them. Guys, let's go tight end. Tags, you first.
I think so. A few names I'll throw out there in tournaments. I think Jared Cook's a decent play against KC. They've struggled against tight ends. Obviously, he's seeing the biggest target share because they don't have any wide receivers in their roster anymore. Austin Hooper against Baltimore. Baltimore hasn't been targeted a whole lot against tight ends, but knowing that they have the stud cornerbacks there, like tight end often goes overlooked. So I think Austin Hooper is a decent play. And then I already mentioned Kyle Rudolph is a good play at 3,600 on DK.
All right, Doug, who are you going with?
Well, first I'm going to wait on the Indy tight end situation. That's going to be the number one thing I want to see. I could talk myself into some of these cheaper guys. O'Shaughnessy with a new quarterback you never know who the new quarterback's going to target. So if he ends up being the guy on a team that doesn't have any wide receivers, I guess there's some upside there. Jimmy Graham also has some touchdown upside. He's always a little bit overpriced, I think, on the name mostly more than anything. If he was back without Kendricks, so I'm probably looking at these guys, but mostly I'm just keeping an eye on the Colts situation.
I like Matt Lacoste. Jason Moore talked me into it on yesterday's show. He's the replacement in Denver. They've been given a ton of targets. Cincinnati is bad, so I could see Cincinnati giving up a bunch of points, and maybe Lacoste gets in the end zone once or twice. He did last week. All right, wide receivers. Doug, why don't you go first for us here?
Yeah, I'll go T.Y. Hilton. No one's going to play him. The targets share has been there. He's going to get a bad matchup here, obviously, with Jacksonville. It's mostly what I tend to want to do with GPPs is target wide receivers that have a ton of upside that no one's going to play because they're going to stare down the matchup and think that it's horrible, and it is, and it's not a great matchup. So, and that is why, but it's also the reason no one is going to play him.
That's why I've got Julio.
Yeah, he was the other guy on the list. This is a guy that's not been on. He is actually pretty close to a cash game play for me, Julio, this week. He draws a great matchup this week, just in terms of what he's going to face in cornerback coverage. But I'll go with Ty because no one's going to play him. 6,000 on DraftKings, has double-digit upside, especially if they're going to move him around. If they're going to move around along the line to kind of avoid the worst matchup from the cornerback situation in Jacksonville. Again, it's mostly an ownership thing. He's 5% or less would be my guess.
Tags, why don't you give us 3 or 4 names?
So Chris Conley was one, definitely down at 3,800. I would think about him. I talked about Robbie Anderson, Tajay Sharp. Those guys are down the bottom. But some guys like in that middle area, I mean, I don't want to say middle because he's 3,900. Curtis Samuel, he played almost every single snap last week. I know he only saw 2 targets, but he looks really good like when he does get the ball. And if for whatever reason Devin Funchess doesn't play, or if Devin Funchess is active and they pull like a Sammy Watkins where they don't put him on the field because the offense actually looks better without him, I think he would be a good play that's going to be very low owned. And I know that Jason kind of put down Larry Fitzgerald on last show, but I'm not scared of playing Larry Fitzgerald this week, I don't think.
Not in GPP. Yeah, he's got a chance.
Yeah, he plays a slot. It's like, his average depth of target isn't as high as someone like Christian Kirk. Or Ricky Seals-Jones has been phased out of the offense. David Johnson may be kept in a block because of that pass rush. So, I mean, I could find a situation where it's like Larry Fitzgerald sees 10-plus targets. If there's snow, that would obviously change things a bit because snow is not very good. But Larry Fitzgerald's not a bad play. And then David Moore. I don't know why people are talking about Tyler Lockett like he's a top 36 play every single week, but they're not talking about David Moore.
He's top 20 ECR, and David Moore might be better.
They're very similar. Like, the thing is like between the 3 receivers in Seattle, I don't think that you could say that David Moore is the worst one. I think he's been playing maybe the best in terms of like from a pure talent standpoint so far. Tyler Lockett's been good, but David Moore, man, like he's just been playing too well like to not like think about him. And his projected ownership this week is 2%. That's crazy.
I've got 3 names. Nobody is going to play A.J. Green against Denver if he's healthy. A.J. Green, I don't care if he's coming off a multi-week injury, if he's going up against a mediocre, good defense, whoever. A.J. Green can go off any week, so I'll get him in there in a couple lineups. I also love Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that, but he's had some big games. It can definitely happen. And then my final play. This is my favorite one. Dontrell Inman, especially if T.Y. Hilton is out. No one wants to pick on Jacksonville, especially with a no-name guy like Inman. You can imagine him as Andrew Luck's number 1 at $5,100 on FanDuel? licking my lips, man.
I like Dontrell Inman. I don't know if I'd play him against Jacksonville, though. Like, Jacksonville, their cornerbacks are still really good. And, like, looking at
Jalen Ramsey is going to be out, man.
Is he going to be out for sure?
Not for sure, but it's going to happen. It's like, I'd say 85% chance.
If he misses, that's obviously a huge upgrade.
And you know me, I keep very close attention to the Jags. I think he's out.
Oh yeah, man. The AJ Boye would be on T.Y. Hilton, so obviously the matchup would be a huge upgrade. So that's a deep play, man. I like it.
All right, running back. Who are you going with, Doug?
Oh, man, I don't mind LaShawn McCoy this week.
Same.
Especially on DraftKings, 4,900. The price actually ticked up. They were giving him away last week at like
You guys are gross.
42 or 4,400. He touched the ball 17 times last week. Gets less targets with Josh Allen is around, so that is like a slight issue. They're underdogs to Miami. They might be better than Miami. It's still Buffalo. Miami stinks. I don't really know. This is just Vegas is seeing it as a 4-point Miami favorite. It wouldn't shock me if Buffalo was just up early. 20 carries is in the cards for him if they even have a slight lead. So I think he has upside. He's looked okay running the ball at times, and that's mostly what you want to see, like his confidence out of him. Not a cash game play for me at all, but I do think he's a guy that he strikes me as a guy that could touch the ball 20 times in this matchup, especially if they get an early lead.
Tags, I'm going to steal your guy here. Okay, first of all, I'm going to premise this by saying I think that there are 6 good plays in cash games. There's 7 good plays in GPP. I would play those 6 guys all day in GPP. But there's one other one that I really like, and it's Jordan Howard against the Giants. Tags, was that your guy?
He's definitely on my list for sure. At 4K, I can't pass him up there. He's got 2 touchdown upside here in a good matchup against the Giants, who have allowed a 100-yard rusher in 3 of the last 4 games, and Josh Adams got close last week. I think people are overreacting a little bit in terms of like the whole Taquan Mizzell thing, where they're scared now to play any Bears running back. I don't think that's the case. I think that they try and get the run game going. They're on the road. They just need to play solid defense, have a run game. They walk away with a win. That's how it works. So I think Jordan Howard at 4K, his price is worth it at that point.
They're the worst run defense in the NFL right now, and he runs the ball over 20 times every once in a while.
Yeah, that's the thing is like outside of last week, I mean, like I think he had 14 or more carries in like almost every game. So he's going to get the carries. I like him. James White is like someone that no one's going to play. Recency bias has killed that.
Oh, that is such a good call for GPP.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is just like he's projected at 1% ownership this week, which is just nuts to me. Like with Minnesota dealing with the Xavier Rhodes injury, they might have to drop back and like safeties can't be as aggressive. You might see some dump offs to him. Some people are worried about Rex Burkhead, but they're likely going to ease Burkhead back into the offense. We kind of saw that with Sony Michel when he came back from his knee injury. So yeah, James White, not bad play, man. Not bad at all.
Man, I like that.
Can I throw out one more guy here because we didn't talk about him, but I just want, in terms of just overall usage, that is probably going to go under-owned. Nick Chubb has touched the ball in the last 4 games since they basically turned it over to him 31, 23, 23, 20 times. But the key for this is, though, 2 of those were losses, and 2 of those were losses where they were getting killed. And so if the plan is going to be Nick Chubb's just going to touch the ball 20 times no matter what, like even if we're down 2 scores, with the upside of 30 touches, if we just happen to get up early, he's still only 7,000. The algorithms are bumping him down because the Houston matchup is a bad one. They're just so good against the run. So that's why he's coming cheap. But over the last 4 weeks, his usage is as high as any other running back in the game. And so people aren't going to play him because of the matchup. But I loved when I see running backs that the teams are like, well, he's just going to touch the ball a lot. Who cares if we're winning or losing? He's just the running back. I think there's a huge floor in guys like that.
By the way, James White, I want to go back to 6,500 is his salary, so he needs like 15, 16 points. Guys, he's hit 24 5 times this season.
Yeah, I mean, some of those games were without Sony and without Burkhead. So, I mean, there's concern. And, like, the matchup is not great. But I'm talking about, like, getting a part of a high-scoring offense that...
He catches 9 balls for 100 yards, 2 scores with 5 carries.
Especially with Minnesota's pass rush.
Yeah. 2 other names I want to ask you about. Sorry we're sticking on running back so long, but there's quite a few, I guess. Joe Mixon against Denver. I know Denver's been great, but he could have a big game. Dalvin Cook at New England. Maybe they let him loose. I'm not banking on it, but there's a chance.
I don't mind Cook, but there's just running backs who are just better plays, it's like cheaper than him. I don't mind Cook at all, but like Sony Michel, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play Joe Mixon at all. Yeah, those guys, Mixon especially. Like I don't like Mixon's matchup at all, and I don't know if Driscoll's the type to check down much. I mean, he did throw some passes to Mixon last week, so I'm not going to rule that out. I would love to see Mixon targeted more in the pass game, but Denver's just been lights out against the run.
All right, guys, quarterback. I'm going with Kirk Cousins to lead us off. Doug, who are you going with?
I don't mind playing Baker here. he's been so efficient the last 2 weeks. 46 passes, 85% and 73%. He's run hot on touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, and you get Cincinnati and Atlanta, and I get this is a much worse matchup. But
with the way he's playing, that could happen.
He just continues to improve. And so if the completion percentage is going to be there, obviously the offensive scheme looks more robust than it did whatever donkey trash they were running earlier in the season. He's been very good, and he's another one. He has like that 20 to 40 rush upside if pressured. So he doesn't do it every game. Like he rushed 4 times for negative yards last week, but the week before 20 yards, then a 9 week, then a 43 week.
Yeah, and he'll get into the end zone here and there too.
Exactly. He has it in him. And especially when I see young quarterbacks gain more confidence, like it's great when he plays bad teams to get more confidence because
he doesn't need more. Baker Mayfield doesn't need more confidence.
Take it back. Yeah, true. Not the confidence like run down and plant the flag in the middle of the field confidence. I more just mean like confidence in the scheme. Like he's got. You wish you could bottle the confidence that this guy kind of brings with him. But what I mean is like more confidence in scheme, and he's clearly a guy. If you saw his comments, especially about Hugh Jackson after last week, like he was a guy that seems like he almost has something else to prove beyond it, which is to say, look how big of a mistake you made early in the season, Hugh Jackson / rest of the Browns thing. And so I hate to like throw those narratives in on top of a guy because they're not analytic driven at all. But I don't know. I could see he's a guy. The matchup's bad. No one's gonna play him. And for a guy that continues to improve, I do think there could be a lot of points in it.
We've got him at under 0.5% ownership. I like that play. I also like Aaron Rodgers even against Arizona because you never know. Tags, what do you think, man? Aaron Rodgers, somebody else?
I wouldn't want to play Rodgers. The Cardinals are one of 5 teams left in the NFL who have still yet to allow a 25-point performance to a quarterback. Knowing that the weather is going to be down, well, Rodgers hasn't been putting up GOAT numbers, so unfortunately. Not to say he can't do it, but his receiving core just doesn't allow him to do it right now. So I like the Cousins call, but again, Stephon Diggs is worrying me. I think Jeff Driscoll is not like a bad play at 4,500. I know nobody wants to hear this, but like the dude's a crazy athlete. He's got good size. We've seen him rush for a couple touchdowns this year already. He's got a live arm. His accuracy down the field isn't great, but if AJ Green's coming back, I mean, the way that you beat that defense in Denver is you throw the ball against them. So, I mean, I think Driscoll is like he's only 4,500 on DK. So like you're able to do some crazy things with him in your lineup, especially, talking about that mobile quarterback. There's just a lot to like there. I also think Matthew Stafford at 5,400 isn't a bad play considering potential game script with those guys. They're playing inside of a dome. You don't have to worry about weather. The last 3 games that the Rams have played, they've allowed a top 3 quarterback in each matchup. So Stafford, not a bad play. And the last one I'm going to mention is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, such a good play. Like I think you're going to see increased volume in this matchup against the Browns. So definitely, I'd consider Deshaun Watson in cash actually, but I think that he's a good play in tournaments.
Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, always have to remind everyone that they've got big time upside any week in any matchup. Now let's go stack of the week. Doug, you go first.
I think it's going to be my tournament and cash stack, and I think the Newton McCaffrey, I rarely like to do quarterback running back because it rarely makes sense. This is one where actually I think you take almost all the touchdown equity from a game where they have a huge just implied total and just basically break it up between those 2 guys. I mean, short of just, a Curtis Samuel end around or something like that. So, or an Alex Armha inside handoff, which almost crushed my soul a couple weeks ago. But the outside of those kind of just weird kind of fluky things, I think they'll be popular, and I think sometimes it makes sense to eat chalk in terms of upside GBP plays, and I think that stacking those 2 guys together makes a lot of sense for me.
Tags, who are you going with?
Jared Goff, Robert Woods, man. I'm all in.
Yeah. I'm going with the Tampa stack.
Mike Evans and Winston?
Mike Evans and Jameis Winston, although Mike Evans did not do well against Carolina last time.
He did terrible, actually, but that was the week he missed some practice time with the knee injury I think he was dealing with.
He still saw 8 targets in the game.
I think 10. I thought it was 10 targets he saw in that game. But either way, before that matchup, he had done well against Bradbury. So I actually like the Evans call. I do.
All right, guys, lock of the week. Doug, why don't you start us off?
I'll go Aaron Jones. I think that he's the guy in Green Bay right now. I think they want to just feed him the ball. I think they've realized that the error in their ways from when they just, I don't know if he was having blocking issues early in the season or whatever it was. I love him for value, and I also just think that he is going to well outstrip his value. I'll call him my lock, and I get that maybe he's not the most popular one.
Tags, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with the same player that I have in my stack, and I'm saying Robert Woods. I mean, this guy, ever since, so after week 1, He has not totaled less than 70 yards. He's playing the Cooper Kupp role, so he's playing in the slot a little bit more with Josh Reynolds and Brandon Cooks outside. Brandon Cooks is going to draw Darius Slay in coverage. The Lions have had so many problems in the slot. Like Tease Tabor is their last year's second-round draft pick. They benched him. He was a healthy scratch last week. If they bring him back, awesome, because he's allowed a perfect 158.3 quarterback rating in his coverage. And then, so they actually replaced him with Nevin Lawson in the slot last week, who allowed 4 catches for 48 yards on just 29 snaps in the slot. So I feel like Woods is like a lock to hit value at his price.
All right, guys. In mine, it depends. If Sammy Watkins is out, we're going Chris Conley. $4,500?
I mean, the price is appealing for sure, but does he hit value, though, if he doesn't score? That's the question.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm betting on Chris Conley if Sammy Watkins is out. And then otherwise, I'm going with Kareem Hunt. I'm sticking with that Chiefs lineup. All right, guys, and that's all for today's show. Doug, thanks for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good luck week 13.
And thanks to the sponsors of today's show, PristineAuction.com. That's Pristine. Check out what they have for you. Over hundreds of items that end every day up for auction. Some good affordable prices. Everything's guaranteed authentic from the most trusted sources. And FanDuel.com. Remember to get your $9 entry in for that World Fantasy Football Championship at FanDuel.com or their FanDuel app. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.